Okay, let's dive right into this explainer because we're going to unpack what is literally the ultimate battle of our lives. It's that everyday clash between our passing emotions and our grand long-term ambitions. Now, here's a wild fact for you. Biologically speaking, human brains are hardwired to conserve energy, right? Our ancestors had to avoid exertion just to survive. So there's this little voice in your head constantly looking for the easiest, most comfortable path. And look, that was great for avoiding starvation on the savannah, but it is terrible for modern goals. We write down exactly what we want to achieve, whether that's building a business, getting into peak physical shape, or mastering a new skill. We map out our strategies, and we feel incredibly inspired. But then, Monday morning rolls around, and suddenly, that grand ambition collides head-on with our evolutionary laziness. The harsh reality hits. We just don't feel like it. So today, we're breaking down a powerful concept that will fundamentally change how you operate. We're going to see exactly why relying on your emotions is a losing game, and how establishing immovable baselines is the real secret to actually getting things done.
So, I want you to really think about this for a second. How often do you negotiate with yourself? You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's 6 a.m., the alarm goes off, and instead of just getting up to go to the gym like you promised yourself 12 hours ago, the trial begins. Instantly, you become a master debater. You're thinking, well, I didn't sleep perfectly, or I can totally just double up on my workout tomorrow, or, my personal favorite, I've been working really hard lately. I deserve a rest. We do this all the time. We do it with our diets, our work projects, our financial habits. We sit down to write that report or study for that exam, we feel a tiny bit of friction or boredom, and immediately the internal negotiation starts. We start bargaining with our own potential, desperately trying to find a loophole that allows us to escape the discomfort of the present moment.
Which brings us to Section 1, the internal negotiation trap and the cost of bargaining. Now, first off, if you do this, you are entirely normal. Like we established, we are biologically designed to seek comfort. But while it's normal, we have to acknowledge that letting our mood dictate our momentum is a massive trap. The true cost of this constant bargaining isn't just a missed workout or a delayed project. It's the slow, compounding erosion of your self-trust. Every single time you negotiate your way out of doing what you said you would do, you are literally teaching your brain that your word means absolutely nothing.
And that's exactly why the concept of doing what you feel like is probably one of the most destructive operating principles a person can have. Operating strictly on how we feel in the present moment is deeply deceptive. Why? Because the present moment doesn't care about your future. When you operate on the principle of doing what you feel like, you are essentially handing the steering wheel of your life over to a toddler. Think about it. If you only work on your goals when you feel highly motivated, perfectly rested, and deeply inspired, well, you're going to be taking action maybe 10 or 15% of the time. Waiting for the right feeling fundamentally halts our progress. Because let's face it, the right feeling is a rare and completely unpredictable visitor.
Let's move to Section 2, Feelings versus Standards, a paradigm shift. To fix this, we need a completely different operating system for navigating life. We're essentially looking at two entirely different mental frameworks here, operating based on feelings versus operating based on standards. And if you want to achieve anything of significance, you have to uninstall that first one and completely hardwire the second into your brain. Let's look at the specs of that old operating system. Relying on feelings is an absolute recipe for chaos. First of all, feelings are fleeting. They change with the wind. They change based on what you ate for breakfast, a random comment a coworker made, or even just a cloudy day. Second, they are totally unreliable. You absolutely cannot schedule a breakthrough around something that might not even show up. Third, they are deeply negotiable. Your feelings are always willing to offer you a discount on your own effort, right? They're always seeking that path of least resistance. And finally, when you add all of that up, the result is just chaotic. A life driven by feelings is a zigzag path where you take 2 steps forward on a good day and 3 steps back on a bad one. There's zero consistency.
Now, the exact opposite of a fleeting feeling is a standard. A standard is the immovable baseline of behavior and execution regardless of your emotional state. I absolutely love that word, immovable. A standard is the floor. It's the absolute minimum acceptable level of performance that you demand from yourself. It doesn't ask you if you had a good night's sleep. It doesn't care if you're feeling a little uninspired today. A standard is a cold, hard rule. It's saying, I write 500 words a day, or I make 10 sales calls every morning. It is binary. You either did it or you didn't. There's no emotional gray area to hide in.
If we put these two approaches head to head, it becomes pretty clear. On one side, we have the flawed emotional approach, doing what you feel like. This is entirely self-centered. It focuses all your attention inward, obsessing over your internal state and your current level of comfort. But on the other side, we have the superior, goal-oriented approach, doing what the goal requires. Notice how this shifts the focus entirely outward. It removes you and your feelings entirely from the equation. The goal is an objective reality. It requires a certain amount of energy, time, and execution to actually happen. By simply asking, what does the goal require, you completely bypass that entire emotional debate.
Moving right into Section 3, what the goal requires, moving the metric. Let's talk about actual execution. If we accept that our feelings are totally irrelevant to the completion of a task, how do we practically make that shift in the moment when the resistance hits? Like, how do we actually switch from the emotional brain to the executive brain?
Well, our source material gives us a fantastic framework. These 3 actionable steps are your circuit breaker. The next time you feel that heavy resistance, I want you to walk through this exact sequence. Step 1, recognize the feeling. Don't suppress it, just label it. Okay, I feel tired, or I feel anxious about this project. Just acknowledge it's there. Step 2, stop the negotiation. This is absolutely the critical moment. The second you hear yourself saying, maybe I'll just do it later, you cut the microphone. You declare a total blackout on bargaining. No deals are going to be made. And step 3, execute on the requirement. You shift your action trigger from I want to do this to I am obligated to do this because it is my standard. You simply do the mechanical steps required, even if you're letting out a heavy sigh while doing them.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. Stop negotiating with your feelings. You have to completely sever the link in your brain between how you feel and what you do. You know, we have this false assumption in society that we need to feel good to perform well, or that the feeling of resistance has to magically disappear before we can start. That is a total lie. You can feel absolutely exhausted, frustrated, totally unmotivated, and still sit down and execute. The feeling and the action can exist simultaneously in parallel lanes. Let the feeling be there, for sure, but do not let it touch the steering wheel. As we move into our final section, building your future, the ultimate outcome, I want to zoom out from these daily, microscopic battles in your mind and look at the macro timeline of your life. Because the difference between those who live by feelings and those who live by standards isn't just a slightly more productive Tuesday. Over years and decades, the divergence in outcomes is absolutely astronomical.
I want you to let this massive realization sink in for a moment. Your feelings don't build your future, your standards do. Think about how profound that actually is. When you look back at your life in 10 years, the passing moods you felt on a random Thursday are going to have vanished into the ether. They leave zero trace on reality. But the standards you upheld, the workouts you forced yourself through when you really didn't want to, the hours of deep work you locked in when you felt completely uninspired, the financial discipline you maintained when you wanted to splurge, those immovable baselines compound. They stack on top of each other, brick by brick, until they construct an undeniable reality. Your future is quite literally a physical manifestation of your baseline standards.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. We can talk about these concepts all day, but learning is only valuable if it actually changes your behavior. So let's make this real. Tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, or tomorrow afternoon when you're facing a really difficult task, what is going to happen? Are you going to fall back into the trap, open up the bargaining table, and negotiate with your fleeting feelings? Or are you going to stand firm, cut the internal dialogue, and answer to your standards? The choice is entirely yours. Just remember, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept.